Thanks everyone for joining us today for our live webinar on the 10-week tech stack. So this is on how API-based platforms can help insurers rapidly spin up new products and reduce costs. So I'll start with an intro. My name is Harsh and I lead marketing at Socotra. I'm excited to be here today. And I've been with Socotra since our very early days, and I've had the privilege of watching the company grow from its very early stages to becoming the cloud-native core system of choice for insurers, both large and small. And I'm looking through the audience today, and it's a fun mix. We've got carriers, MGAs, insurtechs, and even some of our partners who have joined. So, we love having the entire ecosystem here, and that's why we're thrilled to host this webinar. It's really specifically meant for the innovators who feel that same sort of passion and drive to tackle, what we think are some of the industry's most pressing problems, and realize that there really is an opportunity here with better technology. I'm going to cover a couple housekeeping rules before we kick things off. So the first is that this webinar is being recorded. So you will all receive a copy tomorrow, and the audience is on mute. That being said, if you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A to ask questions and comments, and we will either respond during the webinar privately, or we'll address them during the Q&A session at the end. So I just also want to cover the structure, which is I'll be talking with Dan and Jamie about Socotra and Snapsheet, two API-based platforms, and how insurers can spin up new products and reduce costs. And then we're going to dive into a demo, and we'll save 10 minutes at the end for any questions to cover from the audience. So I want to thank Dan, founder and CEO of Socotra, joining us, as well as Jamie, who's president of Snapsheet. And I'd love to start by hearing from both of you about what your companies do and why it matters. Let's start with Jamie. Can you give us an intro to Snapsheet?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Harsh. Great to be here, everyone. So Snapsheet, for those who aren't familiar with Snapsheet, we are solely and intensely focused on improving the claims experience. So we are all things claims, and I find it, unique actually that I get to go first, because so often, obviously, on the stage that we usually talk about the front end and getting the quote and getting it in, but claims obviously is everything we've done. We've been at it for the last decade, so 10 years. It started. Snapsheet started, like many startups, started with with a bad experience. And our founder, Brad Weisberg, got into an accident, and lo and behold, didn't have the greatest experience through it, and felt there had to be a better way, given the evolution and emergence of digital technologies, simple things like phone, and really over the last decade, we've carried that forward to say, how do I actually use digital to its ultimate potential? Really looking at, obviously not just the virtual claims experience, but really full end-to-end from F&OL through to investigation, reserving, and ultimately out to sort of digital payment. And so that's been our obsession, and we continue to drive great improvement.
Thanks, Jamie. All right, over to Dan. Can you tell us more about Socotra?
Yeah, well, most of you out there probably know some of the basics in terms of where it came from. I mean, my background's not insurance. My background is data platforms. And what I saw 6-7 years ago when I looked at the landscape in this industry, I saw entirely custom software, not designed for cloud. Whatever they may tell you today, still not designed for cloud amongst the legacy players. And then I looked at what's readily available for us from Gmail and Dropbox and Salesforce and companies like that. And it seemed that somebody had to step up and make something in this domain that worked like one of these. And that meant actually cloud, like continually upgrading, upgrades you don't even notice, open APIs, things like that. And it also meant having the first cohesive and comprehensive model for an insurance policy that could be configured to support any insurance product with, of course, open APIs and just being cohesive and understandable. And that was the birth of Socotra.
Thanks. So yeah, now we have context for both of the platforms and their journey. I'm curious now, can you talk a bit about how Socotra and Snapsheet came together? Like what's the story there?
Yeah, I'll start it. And so it's interesting, right? As I said before, Snapsheet, we're only focused on claims, right? So fixing one part of it, but obviously, as you have sort of the insurtech market, a lot of MGAs who are looking to add sort of more control of their full experience, or even carriers looking at to how do they digitize their full piece. The problem's a lot bigger than claims, obviously, right? And so no operation sort of works in a vacuum. And while we can be very adept, as Dan said, open APIs, we can integrate with a lot of either legacy policy systems or other. Ultimately, that doesn't create the best situation for our clients. And we had the opportunity to bring things together, right? So one of the real best aspects of the insurtech world is it's a really tight knit, it's a good community. It's a great community of people, as Dan said, very tech forward, applying that technology to a full range of problems. And it presented us with the opportunity to bring together a better solution for our clients that solved a greater range of problems, make it much easier for them at a far greater cost point than a lot of propositions that are out there. So I think the saying is it takes a village. In our world, in the insurance world, it's really an ecosystem. And putting the two companies focused on being the best in their respective areas together, that creates an even better proposition for our clients. And obviously it's just a great natural fit for us.
Yeah. Also, just practically speaking, we just heard your name a lot. Ran into. We've got some common investors in, I believe, Nationwide and USAA are investors in both Snapsheet and Socotra. Been great backers. And then last year, we even signed our first common customer and ran into each other in the field. Not publicly yet, but we checked offline, and press releases are planned for our announcements anyway, press release form or not, for both of our companies. So watch carefully. You'll see first user of the stack.
Yeah, exciting times.
Great. So from some of those initial meetings, it sounds like you both saw that there is this great opportunity for Snapsheet and Socotra to provide what insurtechs and carriers need, which is this modern, robust tech stack, all the way from sort of the inception of a policy, a quote, all the way through all of the complex processes that happen around claims. And all this, Jamie, as you mentioned, happens in a fraction of the time and the cost of other solutions. Tell us more about that, and also, can you share why now? What's the urgency? Yeah. Maybe starting with Dan.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what's exciting is what we're really doing here, we're really announcing, is that if you put these two companies' products together, what you get is the first legacy-free insurtech stack. That legacy-free. Imagine that. Most insurers are trying to solve problems that are, all insurers are trying to solve very difficult problems. They're trying to employ new technologies, and yet they have this monster in the basement that is their legacy tech stack. And a lot of the Socotra customers also have claims needs that can get rather complicated. And we've been able to solve a part of it. Some of them are simple enough, but for the like if you're dealing with auto insurance and some of those workflows, anyway, JB could tell you a bit more about that. But that's what we're here to announce, and we're quite excited about it.
Yeah, and I think a little bit of it. What that really means is sort of the value. Dan talked earlier. He wasn't from insurance. Well, I obviously am, right? So prior to Snapsheet, I led insurance advisory practice at PwC, and so I've spent decades looking at how technology is changing the insurance landscape. And it's interesting, for as long as I can remember, we've talked about digital transformation, and I have to acknowledge that the word transformation perhaps is overused and maybe abused to a point, right? And oftentimes it really means implementation, right? So companies have invested tens of millions of dollars and years effort to, the whole point, we're going to clean up the technology, then we'll figure out how we're actually going to use, that will enable us to position ourselves to use it better for better customer engagement, for new offerings, reach new segments, right? And obviously a space that, from insurtechs to get after right away. And the truth is, as you said, legacy-free environment, we should be focused on and getting to the point where the value is really created. And that is, the ability to launch new offerings quickly, right? The ability to hit new segments. You see that InsurTechs do a great job of picking off, some of those pieces. Carriers look at that within their own world. How do we move that battleship to get after these? And, our proposition is sort of allows you to actually get after that very quickly, focus on where those results are, right? And, enable that full digital customer experience at a total cost of ownership that really, puts the emphasis on creating the value, not on delivering the project or, upgrading to a new piece. Dan talked about, while everybody's now today has now gotten this move to true, native cloud, the reality is that most of the technology is just in a huge transition period to get there. And the opportunity for organizations is you can leapfrog right to that future. And it doesn't just help innovate for today, but it's also positioned for continuous enhancements that get released at it, right? Without having to pay more. The ability to plug and play innovations into that ecosystem, whether us plugging ourselves together or other new capabilities that are emerging, new data solutions that can plug into the stream. And so, again, getting back to bringing that total solution at the speed that clients want, right? It's the speed to results, not just the speed to launch.
Great.
Right.
Well, I don't think it'd be a proper presentation of a stack without a slide, but we kept it to a minimum.
All right.
Okay. Oh, here's Socotra. So yeah, as most of you know, Socotra is a core backend system, handles all these workflows from quote and bind all the way through to underwriting. We can do F&OL on the claims side. Some claims are really no more complicated than just F&OL, and they're basically done. Lapse reinstatement, renewals, all kinds of endorsements, out of sequence endorsements natively, all kinds of them, all these sorts of things. And of course, completely open APIs. Go to docs.socotra.com. Yeah.
Great.
That's us.
All right, and then and so we're sort of the as we said, focused on the claims piece, and so we pick up from whether it's EF&OL or that information gets ingested and fed into really driving how the work is conducted, engagement with the customers, with all the stakeholders that get involved in the claims process, right? So claims is a party of many parties, and the ability to integrate with and assign to third parties to be able to communicate across all the involved parties to help reserving and ultimately around digital payments and actually streamlining that full end-to-end process for us really built on this claims automation accelerator. So the ability for the claim to say, I know all the steps that need to happen. Some I could do myself, and when I need a person, go find the right person. So that's really the big emphasis for us. As we said at the beginning, it's improving that claims experience end to end. And this really, this sort of sets up what we're going to go through in the demo coming up. So it's a little bit of a teaser piece to it, but we talk about the tech stack. Ultimately, it is about that engagement layer, how we're actually engaging the parties that are involved from the policy and claims perspective for agents and customers. And then really, this sort of shows how we present that full end-to-end capabilities for the operations of insurers, from rating to policy administration to billing to full claims and claims payments. So this is just a simple visual to show sort of the end-to-end value chain, and together Socotra and Snapsheet really bringing it all home.
Yep. Now, as mentioned in the catchy title, live stack in 10 weeks. This is for real, and this is what you get when you have modern systems that are actually, have open APIs and so forth, but also are actually productized. Productized means that you can get an evaluation license and try it out. You don't have to wait on us to finish it for you, add your feature, whatnot. It's like Dropbox, Gmail, LinkedIn. You just get your account and start using it. And that allows things to go so much faster and makes your engineers so much happier. So we can go from the discovery to figure out how it's going to flesh out what it's going to look like to implementation. Of course, we're realistic. You don't just flip the switch at the end of implementation. You do need to do a good amount of testing, user acceptance testing. things along those lines. And then once it's even live, because the thing was agile before live, it's going to be agile after live. And you can release your version 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 quite rapidly after. And that's something we see our customers do. They continue to innovate after live.
Great, thanks for that. So now we're going to kick off the demo. I think people just really want to see what it looks like when two API first platforms are combined into this legacy free stack that we're announcing, and what flexibility and agility does it give you. So we're going to have Victor from the Socotra team and Scott from Snapsheet show us. So just give me a second here to hit play.
Hi, I'm Victor, a solution engineer at Socotra. Today we're going to go through an integration between Socotra and Snapsheet. Before I dive into the demo itself, I want to set the stage with what tabs we're going to be clicking through and what is what. So if we start on the left side, we're going to start at something called the Acme Customer. What is this? Well, it's a custom website we built in the span of a day, very quickly, just to leverage the APIs from both these platforms. So behind the scenes, this website is leveraging both Socotra policy APIs and some Snapsheet API and functionality, especially when it comes to the claims and the EF and OL process. Then we're going to cover very quickly two out-of-the-box Socotra UIs, which are the Configuration Studio and the Agent UI to actually see the policies we're creating. And then at the end, I'll hand it off to Scott, who will go in depth about Snapsheet's Agent UI and more specifically the claim we've created. All right, let's start at the beginning, which is Acme Customer. So again, this is a website that we built in a day. And it leverages Socotra APIs. It's a personal auto product, and it captures specific vehicle information at this stage: model, make, model year, ownership type, finance, not finance, leased, so on and so forth. So this is just a workflow. We're already on step 2 here. But before I actually create a policy, let's change the product. So if I go into the second tab, Configuration Studio, so what is this? This is, again, the second tab, the Socotra out of the box. So in here, if I actually go to my definition of exposures, which are vehicles, I've defined vehicles to have a certain number of fields and perils and coverages. And so in here, let's make a fundamental change. Let's make a change that's very obvious. So we're capturing a lot of fields. My website specifically isn't capturing all of them, which is totally acceptable. So in this case, ownership indicator, as you saw, we had not financed, financed, and leased. Let's make an obvious change. Let's say now you can insure rental vehicles. So I'm hitting deploy. And in one place, I'm now deploying this new product definition to my policy admin system, which is Socotra that lives on the cloud. So now any API I hit on that instance will have this new definition. Okay, so I've updated my product in Socotra. What happens to this website? Well, let's start from the beginning. As a customer, I go onto this insurance website, I start my process. I want to create a policy. I want to become a policy holder and then eventually dive into the claims process. So in this case, let's be John Doe. Let's add a date, and let's keep some of these fields in mind as they will come back up as we look at them through the underwriter portal or the back office. So single, let's say type is military, so let's keep an eye on occupation being set to military. Behind the scenes there, we just created a policyholder in Socotra. In here, we have vehicle type like we saw. Let's specify a vehicle. Let's make it a very, very simple, obvious vehicle, 2013 Subaru Impreza. And let's say license plate, super obvious, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Annual miles, let's do 10,000. Ownership type, and here you see we have this new ownership type. Now, rental we just added and we just deployed, and it's because this website, again, is using Socotra APIs behind the scenes. Now, as a customer, I don't need to see this, and it's all seamless, but behind the scenes, I've updated the definition of the product, and then therefore have told the UI to render new options. Okay, let's go through this and actually create a policy. Hit next. Behind the scenes here, we're doing a lot of things in Socotra. So we're hitting a few APIs. We are creating the policy. We are rendering documents, running underwriting. We are pricing every peril, and a lot of other things. We're even issuing it and paying the invoice. This is just because I've defined it to do it this way. There are a multitude of ways and much more granularity you can do in your own implementation. But that's what I've decided to do. And then the third step, I've decided that customers immediately after creating their policy now need to file a claim, just because I've decided to make it that way. So before I dive into the claims portion, I want to see where this policy actually lives. And this brings us to our third tab. And this is the third box over here, Socotra's Agent UI, out of the box Socotra Agent UI. So this is like a back office. So effectively, if you have developers, underwriters, claims adjusters, whomever, they can use this as a portal into their policy admin system. So we just created John Doe, and let's take a look to see. I suspect we have a lot of John Does. We do. So our latest John Doe John Doe, if you remember correctly, this was the date of birth, the occupation we had specified. So this is the guy. This is the policy we just created, the policyholder and the associated policy. Policy already has a few fields filled in, sales channel that I automatically filled in because of my website or based off where the request was coming from. Let's take a look at the exposure. We have a car, it's that 2013 Subaru, license plate, and that new ownership indicator. So I've updated my product definition, and the customer on the customer side hasn't noticed anything different. They go about their day and create a policy just like any other day. So great. Now I have a real policy. This is a real policy in Socotra in your policy admin system with real documents, real pricing, no claims yet, and a real settled invoice. Okay, great. So now we know it's real and it's in the system of record. So let's go into the final step. Everything you're about to see inside of this box is Snapsheet. So this is where the further point of the Snapsheet integration begins. So this right here is Snapsheet pulling from Socotra. So the first thing you'll notice is it automatically pulls the exposure, or the vehicle in this case, that we just created. This vehicle, had we created a different vehicle or added multiple vehicles, would have pulled differently. This is Snapsheet looking at Socotra's policy API and pulling the latest state of it. Okay, let's go through the EFNOL process. And so we're creating a claim, our first notice of loss, with a few steps that we've just configured and decided on in Snapsheet. Let's make a made-up address. Description, let's keep an eye on this person right here. Hydro, let's say because of all the rain, we hydroplaned and impacted road barrier. Great. All right, let's assess the damage. In Snapsheet, as you know, you can upload photos for virtual inspections. Damage, okay. In this case, we're specifying 3 images. The first image, and 2 images of damage. Okay, great. And so one of the final steps is defining direct deposit. In this case, we'll use a dummy checkings account. Great. And so now, before I hand it off to Scott for Snapsheet, now let's kind of review this entire workflow. So as a customer, I went to a single place and I created a policy and I created a claim. And so behind the scenes, this website leveraged 2 systems, 2 services, and 2 APIs. So behind the scenes, we leveraged Socotra APIs to create the policyholder, to create the policy, and everything that means to be a policy. And then for the final step, we handed it off to Snapsheet that also leveraged Socotra APIs to actually create the claim. And so now I'm going to hand it off to Scott, who's going to take this claim and go in further depth.
Thank you, Victor. My name is Scott Topper. I'm the Director of Strategy and Implementation at Snapsheet. And we just saw how a customer, John Doe, submitted a claim through the Snapsheet EFNOL portal. What we're now going to cover is how the claim is processed in the Snapsheet claim system. We'll cover the experience of the claims adjuster, the customer, and also take a behind-the-scenes look at the configurable Snapsheet automation engine that powers the claim through its lifecycle. Finally, we'll go back to the Socotra system and show how both Snapsheet and Socotra's APIs seamlessly send the claim from Snapsheet's system back to the Socotra policy admin system. Now, let's see what happens to our claim in the Snapsheet claim system. The first thing we see is that all the claim details that were created in EFNOL are populated in the Snapsheet claim system. This includes the facts of loss, the incident location, the incident type, the date and time of loss, including the photos that were captured during the upload in EFNOL. You can see the 3 photos here that John Doe submitted. And I can also view the Socotra policy details directly from the claim file in the Snapsheet claim system as well, which includes all the claims history on the policy, the risks, as well as the people and the drivers on the claim. And all of this information is seamlessly passed between both systems using API integrations. For this claim, a task was automatically assigned to the adjuster to review the facts of loss and determine liability. When I review the facts of loss, I could see there was a single vehicle incident. So I'm going to assign liability to the insured in this case. I'm going to go over the claim details here, find the liability determination, and assign the insured at fault here. And once I do that, several automated events are now occurring in the background. So if you look at the financials tab here, which is where we capture our reserves, payments and recoveries, that has now gone from gray to white. The claim has opened up. The task I had closed and now a new one has now appeared. It'll be upcoming soon. And several other items happened. We have a fraud check was completed and automatically run here. Reserves were automatically set on the claim for $10,000 on that exposure. If we go into the exposure itself, we can see the vendors were automatically assigned to the claim. So you can see a body shop was assigned, as well as an appraisal vendor. And our customer, John Doe, was automatically emailed, texted an update on his claim as well. So if I go over to my communications and system events history here, I can see an email was sent out to John Doe directly from the claim file itself, letting him know that the estimate has begun. And in this workflow, we set it up such that an SMS was also sent to John as well. And all of these events are occurring automatically in the background because of Snapsheet's workflow engine. So this is the tool that allows you as a claim system admin to build the automation and engagement that you want to enable for your claims organization. The entire claim system is based on the concept of events. So this includes both human-initiated events like an adjuster selecting a field, as well as events triggered by third parties like an email being received or a text message being received in the system. The workflow configuration tool that you see here is extremely easy to use. It's point and click and extremely logical that any business user can use. And it comprises a set of stages here, which are these columns that run from left to right with a series of events. So these events, as we said, are system events occur, and as events occur, they fire off actions for the system to automatically take. So if we remember our claim example that we just saw, we could see this workflow was kicked off because the claim was submitted via a digital channel of EF&OL. So because we assigned this condition on this workflow, the claim scenario that we're in kicked off this workflow because it met that criteria. When liability was updated in the review EF&OL stage, you could see that the claim was open, tasks were completed. We transitioned over the next stage, which was to set initial reserves. The reserves were automatically added to the claim. There's the $10,000 that we set as well. So you can see anybody can easily just update this to whatever values they want or whatever configuration they want quite easily. And also, we could see that after we finished the reserve setting, it transitioned again to the third stage, automatically assigned vendors, and automatically sent out communications to the customer. So those communications we saw for the SMS going out, as well as the email, automatically was sent based on the workflow that we set up in the system for this type of claim scenario. Finally, we reached this final stage that we're in currently, which is awaiting estimate. So if we go back to our claim here, and we can look in our workflows here, we can see now we're in the awaiting estimate stage of the claim. And we have a task assigned to us that's upcoming. So it was assigned to fire in a day, actually, that we're waiting for an estimate. And we should follow up with the vendor if we don't receive it a day from now. And also, it looks like as we look at our task menu bar here, an SMS has come into the system. And it looks like our customer has actually responded to our text message. So here's the text message that was sent out automatically from the file. The customer responded. It goes right back into the file and starts a two-way text message communication, just like you would do on your mobile phone. Now, if we look again at the tasks that we have outstanding, we reviewed the text message. We'll go ahead and complete that. And we can see now that the only task we have is that we're waiting for the vendor to follow up to send an estimate to us. All right, now it looks like the appraiser has reviewed the vehicle photos that were sent in from the customer and has sent back a virtual estimate via an integration directly to the Snapsheet system. In this integration, the estimate details are automatically updated on the claim, and the actual estimate document is stored on the exposure as well. So you can see here the fields related to the estimate are populated here, an estimate of $8,000, and the estimate document was stored here as well, which also stores it in our document management component of the system here with the other photos as well. If we look at the communication history on this file, we could see that an email with the estimate was automatically sent out to John Doe, updating him on the status of his claim yet again, which also included the estimate that was received into the file. If we go back to our text messages as well, you could see that we sent out another automated text message letting John know when the estimate was ready. And finally, we can go over to our workflow tool and see that we're now in the issue payment stage. So going back to our workflow tool, you can see here all the automation that occurred in stages 2 through 4. We're in the issue payment stage. The last step is to actually go ahead and issue that payment out to John Doe, and we'll move to the final stage of the claim. So when I go over to the financials in the claim itself, you can see also that the reserve amount was updated to the estimate value that came in of $8,000. Automatically. If you remember, we had the initial $10,000 set. So what I'm going to do now is issue a payment to John Doe, an EFT payment for the estimate value. And because it's an EFT payment and because we have several bank integrations, we're going to use the integration from the bank to send a digital payment directly to John's bank account. And the funds will automatically be transferred to his account within 24 hours. So now you can see the claims transition to closed, and we're at the end of the claims lifecycle. All of the automation that happened in the Snapsheet claim system, so we saw an example of it in this workflow here, but all of it was built by business users and requires absolutely no code whatsoever. The platform's configurability is really what allows insurance companies to enable automation and engagement instantly in their organizations, which saves tons in operational expenses and drives high levels of customer satisfaction. Finally, if we go back to our policy on the Socotra system, we can see that the claim that was created in the Snapsheet claim system has already attached to the policy in Socotra with all of the relevant claim details. Once again, all this is possible because of the integration between two modern API-based platforms. That is truly the power of a modern insurance technology stack.
Great. Hope everyone enjoyed that demo. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them into the Zoom Q&A that we have there. And I'm looking through them now, and all of us are here available to answer those questions. So the first one is, what product lines and geographies can this solution be deployed for? Jamie, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, can you hear me? So
Yep.
on the lines, yeah. So sorry, let's just read all the questions. So the lines of business currently auto, home, property, and related exposures, and then sort of latter part of this year, we were actually releasing in the roadmap a we call sort of a generic exposure, which allows you to fully configure and configure new lines in new ways where that information is then actionable in the workflows that Scott shared as well. So lots now, lots more fun stuff to come.
Great. And then another question is, this looks interesting. How do we get started? I'll pass it over to you, Dan. I know we also have a slide to this as well, so I can try that here talking too. So.
Slide to this. Okay. Well, I have a feeling which slide you're going to pull up. We have oh, that wasn't the one. Well, this is great too. But I know on the Socotra side that we do. Given the nature of what we do, being cloud-based open APIs and all of that, it's really easy to do fast proof of concept projects in just a few weeks. Certainly under 30 days, depends on how deep you want to go. And we work with a lot of customers on these as a good starting place, so they understand exactly what they're dealing with, exactly how long it would take to implement, and exactly what it would look like when they're done. I'm guessing something similar on the Snapsheet side, but I'll defer. How to get started is talk to us. Here's how to talk to us.
Yeah, exactly. And Scott showed sort of our visual editor. A lot of it just gets at talking through some of your use cases and really showing how that would work, how you could actually make that work. We have a sandbox environment where we can guide you through it, but it's while aimed at business users. We find that sort of concierge guided approach to walk through what some of the challenges you're trying to do are best. And then, I think since you have the slide being shown, it says, where do you want to be in 10 years? It's also, where do you want to be in 10 weeks? So just to stick to the theme of the event. And the good news is those can be one and the same.
Yeah, I love it.
If you're looking for one point of contact for a joint solution, either of us can liaise. You can write to either one of those and in close touch.
Cool. Next question it's a great one. Thank you, from Ellen from the Forrester team, which is, how have you seen speed change as a factor for traditional insurers in 2020? And do you think this will stick as a normal part of business post-COVID?
I think it has to stick. I mean, you can't just increase your performance, then go, okay, everyone back to work, let's be slow again. It's and it's not, this isn't COVID. I mean, the cat's been out of the bag for a while here because we can see what's happening and how fast someone can stand up Google ads or set up a Dropbox environment or these sorts of things. Look at the influence GitHub has had to creating new code, releasing it, people developing and extending other people's code. It's all out there. The tsunami's already out there in other industries, and it's crashing into the insurance industry now in some really positive ways. And these are the effects. And it's going to mean some really exciting things for the customer and some exciting things also for the insurers who can face the challenges that it brings of kind of getting up on all that.
Yeah, I mean, no question, right? And I think it did shine a light on some of the things that were there, right? So again, we said that people have talked about digital transformation, but it's been this kind of like we can dabble, we can touch on different things, and clearly there's been a sort of a jolt into really fast forward that in different places. I think people big carriers have started to apply it in small, like isolated areas. But the revolution or evolution that you're seeing across it and what we're showing here is that you can do that across the full bit. And then any of those little things you're doing also become faster. And so I think the awareness and the readiness for that are now aligned.
Great. Thank you both for that. So next question is, this integration between Socotra and Snapsheet looks fairly seamless in the demo. Are there, other partners or other pieces of the ecosystem that folks should be considering as they think about getting their product and operation live?
Yeah, I mean, a beautiful thing about the I was describing a moment ago in the new types of technologies is they can fit together quite readily. This doesn't mean like installing an app on your phone, snapping Legos together. People love to put those analogies together. It's not like you just say, oh, I'm going to install the integration with this, and it just happens. That's anyone who tells you that is selling you a fantasy in enterprise software until you're at insane levels of maturity, which is absolutely where this is headed. But what it does do is it brings down the barrier by 1 to 2 orders of magnitude in terms of the difficulty of putting platforms together. So we can integrate with any of the popular payment providers. Our customers have done several. Certainly, I don't know, general ledger software. I'm sure that, what are some of the ones that you've seen? CRM, there's some cloud-based CRM out there somewhere.
Yeah, well, and I would add, I mean, because we call it sort of plug and play innovation, right? I mean, there's two. You can take it down one level in terms of the ease in which to do it, but there's a lot of these sort of point capabilities, right? Like a discrete decisions where people have innovated on, right? Obviously, we see this across the claims landscape, dramatically. And we look at ourselves and the platform we built as a chassis that is there to drive that and incorporate those to automate further. So we take it one step further. While you can, obviously, as a modern technology stack, API integration is obviously more native to us. We incorporate that into that visual workflow editor. So the ability, Scott showed the ability to calculate fraud score. Well, that can pull from a multitude of third parties, right, or your own models in other ways, right? And so the ease at which you can do that. Right. So a lot of people talk about that sort of the marketplace, but the ease in which you can to add it, but more importantly, put it at the fingertips of the business user to use it to really operationalize that right within the workflow. That's a key difference.
Yep. I should have mentioned data providers. That's a huge one. One of our clients in the US sells auto insurance by having the customer photograph their ID and answer 4 questions. They didn't do that without a whole lot of data integrations. And there's also telemetrics devices. There are a lot of companies doing that, and we've seen that a bit.
Yeah, so thanks. Next question is around if either of the platforms or teams from either side can speak to how we think about like legacy data migration. A lot of this, I think, folks think about like, hey, this is something that could really work well for some of their greenfield operations. But yeah, do we have thoughts on how we think about legacy data and legacy migrations over from the legacy side? And that can also be from Scott or Victor as well.
I mean, I can speak to it on the admin side, and we've seen kind of really 3 approaches to migrations, and it really depends on well, I'll spell them out and then you'll know. One is just kind of is completely new. Get rid of everything else. Everything's new dealer, just wipe it clean. And then you've got your old system for your old stuff, new system for the new stuff. Another level beyond that is you want it to somehow reference the old stuff, but you don't necessarily need to sort all of the things in. So what you may do is take each of the old records and export them to some kind of a record that's just like a field of text or something, and then that gets imported in. That's what I call an archival migration, so that you can access the data, but it doesn't necessarily get into your reports and things like that. Then, of course, the third level would be that you would do a full data mapping, so that, in this case, Socotra, Snapsheet probably has an analogous sort of thing, actually understands what each of the fields are, so it can go into reporting statistics and things like that. Upside of that is now the data is truly in the new platform, and you can see the visualizations and things like that. But it did mean that you had to do the scripting to actually figure out where each of those old things align to the new things. And it's really a case by case, and often hybrid models work, especially between the cases 2 and 3.
And I'll have another question from the Snapsheet perspective. I totally agree with Dan's kind of classification, those type of migrations. As mentioned earlier, we're a completely API-based system, and that's our preferred route. So we have a suite of APIs that what we would do is we would use the create claim API and just export the existing claims data from your policy system into the Snapsheet system with the mapping exercise Dan was referring to, so that those claims that were in your legacy system are now claims that can be leveraged and referenced within the Snapsheet system.
Yep. And maybe just kind of my 2 cents, being boots on the ground in some of these migrations, I think really the benefit is the optionality. It's not we're shoehorning you or pushing you into one workflow. It's dependent on the product, dependent on the size of the migration. There's always optionality. So the fun is really kind of coming up with what workflow is going to work best, fastest, most stable. That's really kind of in the ground, is there's all these options.
And the first step is creating the data model for the product within, in our case, Socotra. And we've had customers go through that exercise and even change their minds on which of the 3 approaches they want once they see what the thing looks like and understand the project, what's easy and what's hard.
Great. All right, so we are 45 minutes in, and we still have quite a few questions, but I think we're going to follow up with folks offline. Thank you, everyone, for joining today for our webinar. And again, feel free to reach out to either of the teams, and you will all get a recording of this webinar tomorrow. All right.
Thanks, Harsh.
Yeah, thank you.